All right, you guys. Good morning. Is everybody bright and cheery? All right, I need your brains to pay attention. Today we're going to talk about percents. Does anybody know what a percent is? Nobody? What did you say? Yeah, that's right. A percent means per 100. It's a special fraction. It's based on 100, okay? So anytime you see a percent anywhere, like when you're shopping and everything, just think of parts of 100. So as defined, it means parts per 100. A percent uses a special symbol. This is the percent symbol right here. You guys have seen this before, right? More than once? Okay. And for example, let's say that I want to write 40%. What 40% means is 40 per 100. So you need to have that concept that the number is per 100. Now, can I have over 100% for my percentage? Can I have something like 125%? Can I? Give me an example of where I can have more than 100%. Can I have it? Yeah, I'm sure you can too. Because when I go to the grocery stores and when I go to shopping stores, and especially if I go to the Coach store or I go to Macy's or somewhere, believe me, they are charging me more than 100% of their cost. It's called profit. So when I want to go and look at the Gucci bags, of course I can't buy one, but I can go look at Dooney and Burke designer shoes, okay, and they want $1,000, and I know that they probably only paid $200 for it. Yeah, I'm paying much more than 100%. I'm paying thousands of percents. We do that all the time, okay? So yeah, you can have more than 100%, but it's still based on 100, okay, because it's a percentage. Now, here's a visual representation of 40%. I have 100 white squares, and of the white squares, I've colored 40 of them. So this represents, in blue, 40 out of 100. That would be 40%. Now, this is going to be your task. Since you guys are really doing what we call level 4 math, you'll need to be able to take a percent, convert it to a decimal, convert it to a fraction, and convert it to a ratio. Or if I give you a fraction, you'll need to be able to convert it to a decimal, convert it to a percent, and convert it to a ratio. I give you one, and you do the other 3 formats. You should be able to do that now with everything that we have studied in class. That's why yesterday we really worked on converting from decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals. Now we're going to add percents in the mix. You guys have done decimals, you've done fractions, you've done proportions and ratios and rates, and now you're going to do percent. So you'll need to go through all 4 formats, okay, and know really well how to do them. So if I have 40%, what decimal is that? No, it'd be 0.4, right? Because to do 40% as a decimal, that's 40 out of 100, which is 40 hundredths. So 40 hundredths would be 0.40, right? Yeah, but I have gone from a percent sign to a decimal. You have to do this correctly. Then How do I make 40 hundredths a fraction? 40 over 100, okay? Now, I haven't simplified this yet, but I need to for my final answer, but I just want to show you that I can just read the decimal, like we were doing yesterday, and write the fraction, just by reading it. And then if I need to do the simplified ratio, I could already just go ahead and reduce this by 20. 20 goes into 40 2 times. 20 goes into 100 5 times. So the fraction 2/5 is also the ratio 2 to 5. Because we can write ratios in fractional forms if we want to. Okay? So you need to be able to do exactly what I did here with 40%. Put it in the percent format, put it in the decimal format, put it in the fraction format, and put it in the ratio format. Okay? Going across the different formats for the same number. You guys are going to ultimately do that today for practice. Any questions? Okay. Now, besides the definition of a percent, there are only two things that you're really going to learn today. Two things that are brand new that you're going to learn today. If I'm going from a percent to a ratio, a fraction, or a decimal, I'm going to divide by 100. Now, if I'm going from a ratio, fraction, or a decimal to a percent, I'm going to be multiplying by 100. These are the two general rules that you need to remember with regard to percentages. Okay? And I did list them in your paper, those of you that are writing that down. On page 2, you have 2 bullets. Convert percents to decimals, fractions, and ratios by dividing by 100. Convert decimals, fractions, and ratios to percent by multiplying by 100. You have it right at the top of your page. Just highlight it. Well, Miss D is telling you how to do it, and she gave you a package and a gift. And go to page 2 at the top. Okay? Those are the two things in general that you need to know with regard to percents. Other than the definition of a percent is parts of 100 and it uses a special symbol. One more again. If you have a decimal, a fraction, or a ratio, and you need to make it a percent, you need to multiply it by 100 because it's per 100. Next general rule. When you have a percent and you need to make a decimal, fraction, or ratio, drop the percent sign and divide by 100. Same thing I put it on the top of page 2 in your packet and that I wrote on the board. Learn it. So, if I have the decimal, what is this decimal? Read the decimal to me. 23 what? Hundredths. 23 hundredths. If I've got 23 hundredths and I need to change it to a percent, what am I going to do? Look on the board. What do? I got a decimal. I'm going to make it a percent. Multiply by 100. So, change your decimal by multiplying by 100. Now, when I multiply this by 100, what do I get? Come on, I showed you a shortcut. There's 2 zeros here, so what do I do with my decimal? 1, 2. Just multiply it. I get 23, but I can't leave my answer as just 23 because I've made it a what? What did I make it? So you must have the percent sign there. So 0.23 times 100 will give me 23%. If I'm making it a percentage, I have to have that percent sign there. Remember, the shortcut for multiplying by 100 or dividing by 100 is to move your decimal either to the right or to the left. If I'm multiplying by 100, I'm going to move my decimal to the right 2 places. And if I'm dividing by 100, I'll move it to the left 2 places. We've already talked about these shortcuts. 1, 2. I get the same answer. Okay, now if I'm converting a percent to a decimal, that means I'm doing the opposite. I need to drop the percent sign and divide by 100. What will that give me for my decimal? 0.65, right? And I could use the shortcut by moving my decimal 2 places to the left. And if I did that, I would get 1, 2, which is the same answer, 0.65. Now, if I'm converting a fraction to a percent, what am I supposed to do? Fraction to a percent, multiply by 100. So I'm going to just make that 100 over 1. Can I cancel anything? No, not 1 in 100. 4 in 100. 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 100 25 times. What is 3 times 25? 75. 75 over 1 becomes 75. And don't forget your percent sign because you changed it to a percentage. So you're going to multiply by 100 using your fraction rules, and then you're going to make sure the answer has a percent sign added to it because you're converting it to a percent. I can tell you one thing that students do is they forget their percent signs when they're supposed to have them. Okay, so be careful and make sure that you get your percent signs in there. Okay, let's look at the opposite situation where we're going from a percent to a fraction. If I go from a percent to a fraction, what am I supposed to do? It's on the board, percent to fraction. Divide by 100, okay? Drop that percent sign and divide by 100. Now, what do I do when I have 45 over 100? Can I leave my fraction as a 45 over 100? I need to simplify it, don't I? What can I reduce 45 and 100 by? What factor goes into both of them evenly? 5. And if I reduce by 5, 5 goes into 100 20 times, and 5 goes into 45 9 times. So my fraction is 9/20ths. And I can't reduce that, right? There's no factor that goes into 9 and 20 evenly other than 1. And when it's 1, I'm done. Any questions on taking a percent and making it a fraction using division and cancellation? So since I want it to be a fraction, I don't need to worry about the percent sign. Remember, I got rid of the percent sign, so I could make it a fraction. My ultimate goal is a fraction, not a percent here. All right, next conversion. A ratio to a percent. Now notice the ratio of 7 to 2, I wrote it in fractional form. I wrote it in fractional form so I could do the math. What should I do to make this a percent? Multiply by 100. So I'm going to just make that 100 over 1. And then can I cancel anything? The 2 and the 100 by what factor? 2. So 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 100 50 times. So what's 50 times 7? 350. Now I've got 350 over 1. I'm going to just make it the whole number of 350, but I need to put a percent because that's what I'm doing is I'm making that ratio in fractional form a percent. So you must have a percent sign at the end of this since you're making it a percent. Any questions on making a ratio in fractional form a percent? Nope, okay. Now let's do the opposite. Let's make a percent a ratio. So if I've got a percent, and in this case it's 40%, and I want to make it a ratio, what do I do? Divide by 100. So I've got to get rid of the percent sign, divide by 100. Now, can I leave it as 40 over 100%? No. I'm trying to make it a ratio. So what do I have to do? I have to simplify it, right? Okay, what can I simplify it by? Divide by what? I'd make it a little higher. 10. Well, what's 2 times 10? 20. So let's use 20. So 20 goes into 100 5 times, and 20 goes into 40 2 times. So my simplified ratio will be 2 to 5. Two to 5. Any questions about making a percent a ratio? Just write your ratio in fractional form, drop your percent sign, divide by 100, and simplify. These are the only 2 general rules you really need to know today, the ones that are on the board. The same rules are at the top of page 2 in your packet. And you need to remember that a percent means per 100. That's the definition. So, a percent is defined as parts per 100. It uses a special symbol. To convert a decimal, fraction, or ratio to a percent, multiply by 100. To convert a percent to a decimal, fraction, or ratio, just divide by 100. Complete the practice problems in your study packet. All right, now let's go to our study packet and work a couple of problems.